Good morning, everyone. It's been a little challenging to get on. I have been on my computer system since 6:30 this morning, and all of a sudden at 8:28, the whole internet decided to go down, and it took um, 8 minutes to get back in. So thank you if you're waiting. My apologies if you came on and you weren't here. But today I want to talk about something really interesting. So I've been running a series on in spite of what's going on. And it's all about resiliency. And there's so many opportunities in our life that we have to be resilient or to realize we're not as resilient as we would like to be, or we thought we planned and then, oh my gosh, the plan didn't work, or we didn't have enough of a plan, or wow, never thought of that. So resiliency is that ability to go into neutral at that point of stress and say, what's next? What do I do? How do I handle this? What are the outcomes that I want? And so the last few days I was talking about how we got into neutral around relationships and working partnerships and uh, timely reassessment of agreements. However, this morning when I woke up, it was really interesting. I thought, there's always that one conversation that a lot of families don't want to have, and that is actually the one around death and all the things that are done. There's a lot of assumptions made around, well, we'll have a funeral service, and mom and dad already paid for the plot, and but you know what? There's not a lot of rituals out there that help some people make the proper emotional decisions at that time of loss. So it really does help if you think them all through. So I'm going to talk about a few that are often missed. They're not the logical ones, which is advanced medical directives and end of life care that people want, or the will. Now, the will is important, and there are many, many people who don't have one. And I highly recommend that if somebody's been putting that off because now's not the time, what could be more in our face right now other than the unexpected? The unexpected is here. It's in our backyard. It's in our face as we go. Some of us still go to work and we help others. And so now's the time, just as if a military person is shipping overseas, they make sure that they have all of those situations around wills and financial, taking care of family, and some of those decisions made. But again, are all of them made? That's the question. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I've hit all these decisions, but I will say I was blessed with a mom and a dad who would talk about this stuff. And mostly they talked about it in my teenage years when my grandmother had Parkinson's, and this is in the mid 60s. So I overheard conversations with my mom and my grandfather on how to handle things, and did he have this in place, and did he have that in place. And lots of times my grandfather would get worried about what all the other kids would think because he had 5 children. And mom pretty much didn't always agree with all of her brothers and sisters, but they had a good working relationship. They'd all grown up during the Depression. They'd all knew how it was to pull together. But there was one thing that wasn't discussed. And this stayed as a family story for over 50 years. One of my mother's my mother's youngest sibling is still alive. And he has told this story to his kids because I heard it just a few months ago. My mom was known for loving to go clean things up, to clean them out. She was the most like my grandfather. My grandfather would find a bunch of tumbleweeds along the fence line. He'd just throw a match on it and flare it up and burn it out. Well, mom, from my memory of growing up, every 6 months, she'd make us go through the closets and the drawers and get rid of stuff. So Grandpa called on her to go help him clean out the family house. And today I still hear stories from my cousins on the Navajo rugs that my mom gave to Goodwill and other things like that. And there's no rancor. It's just one of those stories that lives on. So if there's things that are really important like that, it is time, whether your parents or your older ones or whomever you love, they want to say, now's not the time, now's not the time. I want you to tell you it is always the time to have the conversation. So whether that's to sit down and go through old family mementos and to say, I'd love so-and-so to get this, and then get it written down. There's actually some fun books out on Amazon. I looked them up today. One's called A Peace of Mind Planner, and the other was titled Important Things I Want You to Know When I Die. And yeah, duh, we got to handle it. And this is where I see families falling apart. You know, there's a word out there that some people use called estranged. I'm estranged from my family. I cannot even imagine that. I am so sorry that that occurs for people. I just don't get it, because they're who I grew up with. They're who I spent my time. Now, I do understand that there's abusive relationships. I understand that people willingly estrange themselves to be emotionally healed. But when I still hear the grief in there, that was what they had to handle, then I really want to know where, as adults, could they come back in and do some emotional healing. Now, I've got friends and associates that I can connect you with for that. So my point is we all have a life cycle, and are we prepared? So I don't want to digress off onto other things, but we're not always prepared. So mom and dad, whoever you are, aunts and uncles, you really need to help those of us that you're asking to come in and make decisions for you afterwards. You need to give us direction. Okay? So this is not the hard conversation of when do you take mom and dad's car keys away, because that's another one. But this one is they're gone. And then what do we do with this stuff? You know, I have some interesting mementos from when I cleaned out after my father. And I realized I'd never seen any of them, and I didn't have the story that went them. And as much as a storyteller that my dad was, is that I have some items now that I don't really want to throw away. I think one was a carving from my great grandfather on his side, but I'd love to know the story. And so here's the other thing that's the challenge. Give your family permission for things to throw away, because you know some of your family members are hoarders. So already make the decision of what's going to Goodwill, and just take that time, and don't wait until you're in hospice. Don't wait. So now's a time when everybody's going through their households and they're throwing away those excess things that they need. And many of you are visiting your parents outside the window of the house to see how they're doing. Well, maybe it's time to ask them to bring out different items and to talk about them to you. And you tape it on your phone through the window so that you have the story. And if they're not too sure what to tell you to do with that item, you know the story behind it for when there is a time that you need to manage that. But some of the recommendations is if you are that child that gets to clean things out, is it's tough, because I did it, and I did it twice. And I know that in my husband's family, there was a tradition to go through and take what you wanted, and then they did an estate sale, because they were all in a rural area, and in fact, they had an auctioneer in the family. So here's the things you have to do. You have to look at rituals. You have to look at expectations, and you want all of those on top of the table before the event, so that there is less stress at the end. So the things that your family members want to do is to keep what was joyful to them. And don't keep things out of guilt. And don't rent storage, because that's an economic thing that you'll never get back. And if you rent the storage to wait for other family members to show up to take what they want, well, remember, that's on you. Don't get upset about it if you made that decision. But really, if you're going to pay the money and nobody's going to pay you back, maybe that's not a good business decision. And I say business decision, not emotional decision, because it is about economics at some point. And then you're going to be in pain. But when it comes to clothes, sometimes the question is, should I keep all the clothes? They fit me. But you know what? There's something about wearing a close family member's clothing, unless it was a cherished item. I don't recommend you keeping the clothes. And that's just a different story. But maybe you keep one or two things like a shawl or a blanket, but not necessarily the clothing, and just graciously gift that out to others. Now, I talk about this preparation, and I kept it really as light as I could today. But I want you to know that a lot of people, this is where family disruption comes. So, in spite of whatever is prepared for you on the life cycle, there are family members who will check out on you at the end and not be there to help you with either the service or the eulogy. So, I'm going to recommend you make that simple too. So, I'm running almost out of time, but let me just say that please, please, please don't leave it up to your family members to make decisions at the last minute about the type of funeral service you'd like to have or memorial service. You know, in my family, we believe in my family, my direct family, my mother and father, we believe in cremation. So actually, my husband and I have our cremation boxes sitting in the closet. We've prepaid for that cremation. There might be some other costs. My son might get coached into getting a headstone, but we're going to tell him no. We want a memorial service. We don't need a lot of expense. And however he can come up with doing that for himself to celebrate our passing will be fine with us. But we'll give him a little coaching on that in case he needs to know that. But we also know that right now there's some things that we still need to do. So my husband owns a business and I own a business. And we have a lot of details down, but we don't necessarily, how do we do customer contacts and really close everything down? So those are conversations that we are having. We also now still need to sit down with our son. It's expected that both of us wouldn't go at the same time, but who the heck knows? So we still have to have that conversation with him, and that's on our calendar. He's 29. He may not want to have the conversation, but we're going to have the conversation around, here's how we're going to make this easy on you. Because actually, whether you know it or not, it takes a couple of years to close out an estate, tax-wise, getting everybody to get you off a mailing list, and more. And so there's a lot of details. So all I want to say right now is I'm encouraging you today that in spite of what's going on, do not ignore that there could be this condition coming up for some of you now or 10 years from now. But have the conversation for your life cycle preparation. How do you want your family to handle things after you're gone? How do you want to help your family keep their emotional health amongst themselves, especially if they're siblings who've been used to quibbling, quabbling, and squabbling? I don't know. So in spite of, I want you to start thinking about the resiliency you need in times of change and put it in. So I'm Marla Copal, the Vitality Mentor. I want you all to live your lives enthusiastically, but with a plan. And I look forward to connecting with you again tomorrow at 8:30 if my internet works. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.